The sky is still a soft gray minus blue when you step into the ancient city of Tenochtitlan. It's that in minus between our too late for owls, too early for vendors. The streets are quiet, paved with smooth basalt stones still holding the night's chill. The lake mist drifts slow, curling through alleyways like it forgot where it was going. Somewhere behind the temple walls, a priest is already chanting to greet the sun. But here in the outer market district, there's only silence and the smell of fresh corn. You won't make it through this day. Not because it's hard, but because everything about it is so beautifully, absurdly slow. This is a story of Aztec chefs, yes, actual chefs who turned cooking into both science and sacrament. Their world was made of more than food. It was flavor, fragrance, color, and cosmic alignment. And no pressure, but if your cornmeal wasn't ground by sunrise or your tamales were entrapped with symmetrical corners, you risked cosmic imbalance. So, before we dive into steaming pots and flower petals, do me a gentle favor, click that like button if your hands aren't already full of tortillas, and feel free to subscribe for more sleepy stories. Leave a comment with your location and what time it is where you are. Because no matter what calendar you follow, it's always time to drift somewhere peaceful. Now let's ease into tonight's journey. You follow the scent of something toasting. A low, warm aroma that hugs the edge of the alley. A kitchen small and walled in with some minus baked bricks has its doors open. Inside, a woman older, graceful, humming something between a lullaby and a prayer leans over a clay como, flipping thin discs of masa. Tortillas, fresh and imperfect, puff slightly at the edges as the steam inside them rises like little sun gods stretching before a long day. She doesn't look at you, but you feel welcome. Here's a fact to chew on: the Aztecs had entire culinary guilds. Real organized societies of cooks, each trained in technique and ritual. There were tamale minus makers, chili minus grinders, and elite flour chefs, the kind of folks who probably insisted you taste with your nose first. You sit on a low stone step. No one rushes here. Even the dogs are too relaxed to beg. One lies nearby, ears twitching once, then giving up entirely. A clay bowl rests beside the como, filled with yellow marigold petals. Not for decoration, not just for decoration. These petals will be sprinkled over corn cakes as an offering to Kai Kum Kotel, the maize goddess. It's food, but it's also an open letter to the divine. A weird little tidbit some Aztec chefs sang to their stews. Not for seasoning well, maybe a little, but to keep bad energy out of the pot. Sound vibrations, it turns out, were an early form of culinary therapy. You shift slightly on the stone, watching the woman stir a pot of beans. It's not just beans. There's epiazole in there, an herb with a pungent kick and a reputation for making digestion less musical. A boy runs past outside, barefoot and trailing laughter, holding a basket of squash blossoms like HES won a prize. He doesn't stop. HES late. His mother is probably making TLA koi. OS, and she doesn't want the flowers to wilt. The morning haze lifts just a little, and the city begins to stir. But here, in this quiet kitchen corner, time folds over like a warm tamale wrapper. And you? Your just beginning to soften into the day. You leave the comfort of the como behind and follow a winding path into the open minus air market. The stone underfoot is still damp, cool like early thought. The first merchants are setting up, pulling colorful cloths over reed mats, laying out piles of maize, herbs, and what appears to be a truly judgmental iguana. It blinks at you, unimpressed. In the distance, the lake glitters with the sun's arrival. Boats slide softly between the china pans, floating gardens that feed the city. From here, you can just make out the greens of amaranth, tomatoes, and chilies reaching toward the light like they've got something to prove. You wander past a stall where a man grinds cacao beans on a stone metate. He moves slowly, rhythmically, his body remembering the motion like it's a prayer passed down through knuckles. AGS not making chocolate yet. First, the beans must be roasted, peeled, ground, and whispered to. Maybe not that last part, but it wouldn't be surprising. Aztec nobles didn't just drink cacao. They phoned it, spiced it, sometimes thickened it with corn, and always drank it from vessels too beautiful for morning clumsiness. It was dessert. It was status. And possibly breakfast, lunch, and spiritual alignment. You pass a pile of squash, stacked like sleepy golden moons. Each has a flower still clinging to its stem, as if reluctant to let go. A vendor lifts one gently and gestures toward the basket beside her stuffed with tamales tied with corn husks folded into careful knots. Not bows. Knots. Bows are fancy. Knots are sacred. Here's your historical morsel during religious festivals. Aztec cooks prepared specific ceremonial meals, often thousands of them to be distributed among temples, warriors, and even the poor. Feeding the gods meant feeding everyone else too. Historians still argue over how many cooks it took to feed Tenochtitlan during peak festivals. Probably more than the number of gods, which frankly was a lot. You kneel by a tray of edible flowers colorful as a child's drawing. Not just marigold and squash blossom, but prickly pear petals, hibiscus, and something deep purple you can't name. A young girl sprinkles water over them from a gourd, her hands delicate as wind over feathers. Weird fact, some Aztec cooks painted tiny glyphs onto tortillas using natural dye, symbols for love, fertility, protection, or that day's market price. Scholars suspect some of these were edible means. You find a spot on a worn wooden bench, beside a woman stirring a pot of an old warm corn drink spiced with cinnamon and maybe a little chili. She offers you a cup without a word. It smells like morning and memory. You sip. It burns just a little. In a good way. Nearby, someone begins to sing low and slow. A vendor arranging chili peppers by color. You realize the entire market is beginning to move like a living recipe, every action small, intentional, and strangely sacred. And just like that, the city is awake. But you, somehow, feel softer than before. You rise from the bench slowly, cradling the lingering warmth of the atoll in your belly like a sleepy ember. The market behind you hums now, a lullaby made of footsteps, hushed greetings, and the rhythmic thump of corn being pounded into dough. You follow a side path between rows of stalls until it opens into a quiet courtyard surrounded by low adobe buildings. The scent here changes, less smoke, more earth, a whisper of crushed herbs and damp stone. This is where the temple cooks prepare their offerings. Not for sale. Not for eating. For sacrifice. And not in the terrifying way modern movies would have you believe. We're talking tamales, tortillas, stews, and delicately folded flour dishes presented to the gods on woven mats. Today's menu appears to include red corn dough stuffed with pumpkin seeds, shaped into small moons undusted with powdered amaranth. Honestly, it looks like a Michelin-minus-star dessert disguised as divine tribute. A man wearing a blue cotton tunic and the expression of someone who has stirred the same pot since sunrise carries a tray of tortillas stacked like sun discs. Each one is brushed lightly with annatto brick red, earthy and arranged in perfect circles, as if geometry was required for celestial approval. Historical fact, the Aztecs believed that the gods had sacrificed themselves to keep the universe running. In return, humans had to offer food, blood, and breath. Fortunately, the food came first. Ritual meals were an essential part of maintaining cosmic order. Even the gods, apparently, got grumpy when hungry. You move to the edge of the courtyard, where a young woman kneels beside a grinding stone. She's working slow, focused, crushing chili seeds, and deep years old leaves into a thick paste. Her hands are stained red and green like abstract art. She pauses occasionally to sprinkle flower petals marigold, mostly into a nearby bowl. Not to eat, but to place on the mat beside the food. Think of it as spiritual plating. And here's a strange tidbit: some rituals included speaking to the food. Cooks and priests would utter words of gratitude or invocation, depending on the dish. One chant, preserved in fragments, thanks a tamale for being soft enough to chew but strong enough to carry a prayer. Historians still debate whether this was poetry, theology, or extremely polite hunger. You take a seat near a painted wall, red ochre and black lines forming glyphs of maize stalks and cloud-minus serpents. The mural seems to shimmer slightly in the morning heat, as if it's tired of staying still. A breeze curls into the courtyard, but stops just short of the altar mat. Even the wind knows when it's not the main character. Another cook appears with a clay pot, steam hissing gently from its lid. He lifts it to reveal a stew made of beans, chilies, and what looks like tiny squash. It smells bold, sacred, and possibly spicy enough to make the gods cry. As you sit in the shade, the sun rises just enough to light the top edges of the wall. Gold against ochre. Silence wrapped in scent. The offering is almost ready, but no one rushes. And neither do you. You're walking again, this time along a narrow stone channel that carries water from the lake through the inner compounds. It burbles quietly beside you, tugging bits of flower petals from someone's earlier ritual. Even the gods leave crumbs. The path curves into another courtyard, this one more humble. Less painted, more worn. This is the training kitchen, where apprentice chefs in young temple aides learn the art of sacred lunch. You can tell because one boy just dropped a bowl and froze like the sun might explode. No one yells. An older woman in a faded wrap gently shoos him aside with the same patience one might show a goose in the road. Then she sweeps the mess into a neat pile with a bundle of twigs and returns to her grinding like nothing happened. This is how the knowledge gets passed down, not with textbooks, but with burned fingers, quiet corrections, and repeated gestures until the muscle knows what the mind forgets. Historical fact of the day: culinary apprentices in the Aztec world began training young, often within temple schools or noble households. Their education included food preparation, nutrition, ritual meaning, and yes, presentation. If your tamale leaned too far left, it was corrected. Spiritually and geometrically. One side of the courtyard is shaded by tall woven mats propped against poles. Beneath them, several used mashed avocados with a flat wooden paddle. The resulting paste is bright, creamy, and likely headed for something deceptively simple. Guacamole before it had branding. Nearby, a girl with a sun-minus smudged nose arranges tortillas in an elaborate spiral. Each disc is the size of a palm and sprinkled with flour salt. Yes, salt infused with petals and left to dry in the sun. We're talking early gourmet. Here's a cultural oddity for you: some Aztec cooks created tiny edible sculptures, miniature temples made from cornmeal and beans. They weren't meant to lust. Just to show precision, honor the gods, and give the squirrel something fancy to nibble on later. You crouch near a wall where a mortar rests, half-minus filled with red chili paste. There's a wooden spoon sticking out at a casual angle, like it's just waiting for someone to admire it. You do. Ipri-ns, modestly. One of the boys begins singing a counting song while arranging cactus slices on a leaf. It's not a performance, just the kind of tune that keeps your hands moving and your heart from getting bored. The sun overhead shifts slightly, casting a long stripe of gold across the courtyard floor. A passing cloud dulls it for a moment. Then it's back. You rise, dust your hands, even though they weren't dirty, and follow the path once more. You're not in a hurry. You're in a rhythm. You follow the rhythm through a passageway lined with smooth stones, where the scent of toasted maize fades into the background and something else emerges, floral sweet, and just the tiniest bit herbal. You've arrived at the flower kitchen. Yes, a whole kitchen devoted to flowers. Not the bouquets minus in minus vases kind. The edible, sacred, please the gods and your palate kind. If this sounds excessive, remember Aztec life was a blend of survival, beauty, and symbolism. They didn't separate art from nourishment. They seasoned with meaning. The kitchen is a half-minus open space, shaded by a canopy made from reeds and vines. Woven baskets hang from the rafters, each filled with petals, leaves, and stamens in various states of drying. Some are bright and fresh, others look like ancient parchment with perfume. A cook, mid-minus 30 seconds and mid-minus sigh, sits cross-minus-legged before a low table. Chefs sorting marigold, hibiscus, and zacatol, the Aztec name for flower, which they applied to almost everything with color and grace. Her hands move with careful choreography, as if the flowers might retaliate if handled wrong. She lifts one blossom, sniffs it, and presses it flat between two warm stones. It wilts obediently, folding in on itself like a shy answer. Historical fact, Aztec cuisine incorporated over 100 types of edible flowers, not just for flavor, but for spiritual purpose. Each was associated with a deity, a season, or a ceremonial use. Flowers were medicine, garnish, offering, and metaphor all in one fragrant bundle. You settle near a wide stone tray where petals have been arranged in a spiral. Not for serving, for praying. Some dishes were never meant to be eaten. They were made to be admired, blessed, and then returned to the earth. Weird tidbit of the day, some chefs were known to taste the color of flowers, claiming that yellows added joy, reds brought strength, and blues they'll wear brought clarity. Modern science might call this synesthesia. The Aztecs called it Tuesday. Another woman sprinkles a powder made of dried hummingbird feathers ground, so fine it looks like smoke across the surface of a maize cake shaped like the moon. You blink. You're not sure if that was real. It might have been a story that wandered in. A breeze flutters the canopy. Petals drift lazily to the ground. No one hurries to pick them up. Fallen flowers, after all, are half a blessing. You turn your head toward a stone basin filled with rose water and bits of orange zest. A boy maybe 7 dips his fingers and unflicks the liquid onto the floor in a neat triangle. A blessing, a game, or both. The cook with the spiral tray stands, lifts a bowl of mixed petals, and begins to walk slowly toward the temple steps nearby. Not a procession, just a purpose. And you follow, not out of duty, but because the path smells like summer and memory. The temple looms ahead, not intimidating, just tall. Its red-minus painted steps rise toward a sky that now burns gently with mid-minus morning light. The gods are probably busy, but the humans below still offer what they can, mostly food. Sometimes flowers, rarely silence. You linger at the base of the stairs. The flower cook ascends gracefully, balancing her bowl like it's full of sleeping birds. She disappears behind a curtain of incense smoke, and you're left in a courtyard bustling with preparations. This part of the complex is where meals meet meaning. Priests, cooks, and attendants swirl around each other in choreographed chaos. There's a man wrapping tamales in rush leaves, another arranging fruit in exacting spirals, and someone muttering at a pot that clearly misbehaved. A young priest is reciting something soft and rhythmic, while brushing chili sauce onto a maize sculpture shaped like a mountain. It glistens. It also leans slightly. No one points it out. Here's your historical helping on certain feast days. Edible sculptures were made in honor of the gods, often modeled after temples, animals, or mythical symbols. These were consumed in ritual meals, sometimes shared with the community, and sometimes only with the divine. Historians still debate whether these meals were symbolic offerings or actual food for communal celebration. Possibly both. Possibly more. You walk slowly past a line of clay jugs filled with flavored waters infused with lime chia and the ever-minus present hibiscus. One has slices of cactus fruit floating inside, their crimson flesh like little suns melting in liquid. Someone offers you a sip. You take it. Cool, tart, and faintly bitter like a lullaby with a twist. A parrot squawks from the rooftop. It says something that might be words, or just commentary. No one corrects it. Nearby, a group of children are drawing symbols in cornmeal dust on the stone floor. A sun, a jaguar, a fish with legs. One girl draws a flower so precise you suspect she's been reincarnated from a mural. Cultural footnote: Aztec children word art symbolic drawing from an early age not just as art, but as a language. These glyphs told stories, marked rituals, and made grocery lists surprisingly elegant. You kneel by the glyphs, careful not to smudge them. The dust clings to your fingers, smelling faintly of ashen citrus. Someone rings a bell. Soft, high, clear. It isn't a call to arms. It's a call to attention. You look up. The day is unfolding again. And you're still exactly where you need to be. You move with the crowd now, not hurried, not lost, just gently pulled forward like a pedal on a shallow stream. The temple plaza stretches wide, ringed with small altars and shaded awnings where the cooks have laid out their offerings like quiet conversations. The food isn't arranged like a banquet. It's a story. Each dish placed with meaning: beans for grounding, maize for life, squash for abundance, and chilies because even gods need a little excitement. The air is thick with incense, with smoke, and the tang of roasted tomatoes. It smells like memory and the kind of hunger that doesn't start in your stomach. You settle beside a low altar where an elderly woman is lighting a tiny clay burner. Her hands tremble slightly, but her aim is perfect. A wisp of copal rises, sweetened resinous. She sets down a dish to tiny tamales wrapped in green husks, bound with thin cotton thread. They're shaped like hearts, probably on purpose. Historical fact to taste in the Aztec calendar: every day was linked to specific gods, animals, and symbols, and yes, food. Chefs knew which days called for beans soaked overnight, or which days favored yellow corn over red. Cooking wasn't just practical. It was cosmic alignment with seasoning. You watch a priest barefoot, robed in plain cotton, step forward to chant a short blessing over the assembled dishes. He doesn't shout. He speaks like H.E.S. talking to the trees, the sky, and the tortillas all at once. One offering stands out: a tortilla folded like a butterfly, dusted with blue maize flour, and topped with a marigold petal. It's so delicate you're not sure whether it's meant to be eaten, worshipped, or gently complimented and left alone. Strange tidbit: some Aztec cooks made breath cakes, flat maize patties that were ritually breathed on before being offered. The breath, seen as life force, turned the food into a true vessel of the soul. Sort of like blowing on a hot spoonful if the spoonful was sacred. You step back as the crowd shifts again, revealing a row of clay bowls, filled with stews, some bubbling gently, others still and covered in fragrant leaves. A few have sprigs of epiazote stuck upright in the center like flags planted on spiritual terrain. A child with serious eyes and chili on her chin hands you a flower. Just a yellow blossom. No explanation. You accept it without question. Above, the sun finally breaks past the morning haze, and the stone plaza glows like something freshly painted. For a moment, everything is gold in the walls, the petals, the bowls, your breath. You don't speak. You just stay a while longer. Because whatever the gods are tasting today, you've already been fed. The sun is higher now, but the breeze has returned, threading itself through awnings and braids and steaming pots like it's searching for forgotten stories. You let it guide you toward the outer gardens, less ceremonial, more personal. These are the herb plots and flower beds maintained by cooks, midwives, and elders. Each section is marked with smooth stones and little wooden signs etched in glyphs. I rabbit. A river. A maize stalk with fur curls. You kneel beside one of the plots. It smells like oregano, lime, and wet stone. Bees hover, lazy and undecided. A woman in a simple tunic kneels nearby, her fingers deep in the soil as she coaxes something green from beneath the earth. She glances at you, smiles without words, and hands you a leaf. You chew it carefully. Bitter, then citrus. It wakes up the back of your throat, then tucks you right back in. A young boy trots past with a basket of amaranth leaves, nearly tipping over with pride. Someone calls after him, probably to remind him that pride won't keep the leaves from wilting. Historical sprig for the mind as Tex cultivated extensive gardens not just for food but for medicine and ritual. Every noble home had a herb garden. Temples had dozens. Even schools had kitchen plots, where students learned to grow before they learned to cook. There's a small altar under a fig tree here, nothing grand, just a stone with flower petals and a few beans placed in a ring. Offerings of gratitude. Or maybe someone's mid-minus snack and very reverent. Weird little root facts and cooks claimed certain herbs listened to the cook's intention. If you harvested basil while grumpy, the flavor would turn. Whether true or not, no one dared pick cilantro after a bad day. Use it beside a patch of squash blossoms. They sway slightly in the breeze, golden and soft, like they're nodding off mid-minus prayer. Farther along, a trio of cooks are debating something in low tones. One gestures toward a gourd, the other toward a clay pot. You don't understand, but the intensity suggests that someone may have added too much honey. Again, the wind stirs the leaves overhead. A few fall not dramatically, just gently on land near your feet. You let them be. The garden stretches toward the lake. The city hums in the distance. And for now, there's nowhere else you need to be but right here among the herbs, the sunlight, and a dozen quiet recipes waiting to be remembered. You follow a winding trail of flat stones that leads away from the herb gardens toward the outer edge of the temple grounds. The air here is softer, touched with the scent of clay and something faintly sweet like tamarind or roasted agave. You spot a cluster of clay ovens tucked against a low wall, smoke curling lazily from their mouths like they're dozing after breakfast. This is the nixtammal corner, the place where corn becomes masa, where rock meets rhythm. A group of cook snails in a line, each working a stone meat, grinding softened maize into smooth dough. The sound is steady, stone on stone. The heartbeat of the kitchen. You sit nearby, watching as one woman scoops up a handful of the warm, damp dough and presses it gently between her palms. She pats it into a perfect circle, center the memory, and lays it onto a flat griddle. The tortilla puffs slowly, obediently, like it knows it's being watched by the ancestors. Historical fact is Tex perfected the process of nixtamalization, soaking corn in an alkaline solution to make it more nutritious and digestible. This was luck. It was chemistry centuries before anyone used that word. Without it, the diet would have collapsed. With it, they fed an empire. Nearby, a young man scoops sash from an old oven and mixes it into a jar. You blink. HES, not cleaning, HES, making cow, the mineral powder used in the soaking process. Even the leftovers have purpose. A funny little culinary footnote: some cooks claim that a tortilla would only puff correctly if the cook was in a good emotional state. Bad mood. Flat tortilla. Broken heart. Burned edges. Whether science or superstition, no one dared test it before a feast. You glance at the line of cooks. No one is speaking, yet they move like dancers in quiet sync. Dough pat, griddle flip. Steam rises. The breeze carries the scent upward, maybe all the way to the gods. A girl not more than 12 presses her first tortilla. It's lopsided, thick on one end. She frowns, embarrassed. The woman next to her simply swaps it onto her own griddle without a word and hands her a new lump of dough. The cycle begins again. You lean back against the wall. The smoke trails upward and drifts toward the lake. You close your eyes for a moment and listen to the rhythm pat, scrape, hiss, sigh. It's a recipe for silence. And you're full of it. The sun has now passed its peak, and the light turns a bit more golden, like someone added honey to the sky. You rise and follow a narrow canal that hugs the edge of the gardens. It's barely a stream, just enough water to cool the stones and reflect passing clouds in soft, wobbly shapes. You hear laughter ahead. Rounding the corner, you find a shaded clearing where several cooks are gathered under an open shelter, sitting cross-legged with baskets of fruit spread out before them. This is the post-race station, the dessert squad, if you will. Not cakes. Not pastries. Nothing heavy. Aztec sweets were about freshness, texture, and a certain quiet pride. These were fruits candied in honey, ground with seeds, or stuffed with flour pastes. Food for celebration, for the gods, and occasionally for anyone who looked like they needed cheering up. You sit beside a basket of prickly pears, their deep magenta flesh glowing like stolen sunsets. A young man slices them carefully, removing the seeds and laying each half on a woven mat to dry slightly in the sun. He offers you a slice. It's tart, sweet, and tastes faintly of the garden and some emotion you don't quite recognize. Historical sweetness, the Aztecs used honey from Stingle's bees, Maggie sap, and fruit pulps to sweeten dishes. Sugarcane hadn't arrived yet, so everything was done the hard way, sweetness earned, not bought. A woman nearby is rolling small balls of ground amaranth and pumpkin seeds mixed with honey. She places each one on a leaf, arranging them in circles like tiny edible planets. Strange fact, one temple festival featured sweetbreads shaped like human figures, decorated with seeds and flower petals. They weren't morbid, more like symbolic paper dolls for the gods to inhabit before being respectfully devoured. You lean over a flat stone where another cook is carving tiny designs into soft guava. She's not rushing. She's telling a story. Each fruit bears a face, or a flower, or a glyph you don't understand but somehow recognize. The laughter continues, soft, sleepy, familial. A joke is shared. A fig is tossed. A dog wanders through and is handed a mango peel, which it accepts like royalty. You sip a drink passed to you in a gourd bowl. It's cool, infused with mint and a hint of chili. The combination shouldn't work. But it does. The breeze picks up again. The clouds shift. And for a moment, everything including you just settles. Not because it must. Because it can. You move again not because you're finished, but because the path invites you. Past the fruit peel and laughter, past the stream of minty water where a child washes sticky fingers with more patience than efficiency. The palace of flavor gives way to a quieter corner of the city. Ahead is a long, low building made of brick and sun, where the smells of dried chilies and smoke cling to the walls like old stories. This is the Spice House. It isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. This is where fire lives. Inside, woven bundles hang from the rafters. Gua Gillo, Pasila, Chill, who are CLE names whispered like spells. They sway slightly in the crosswind, each one a shade of red so deep it's practically a mood. Cooks sit in pairs, grinding dried pods into dust using round stone mortars. The grinding is deliberate, heavy, steady. You feel it more than hear it. It's not just preparation, it's intention. Eamon offers you a small ceramic plate with a pinch of chili powder. You taste it. It blooms across your tongue like sunlight through stained glass. Heat, yes, but also smoke. Citrus, Bitterness. Memory. Historical amber Aztec cuisine included hundreds of chili varieties, each matched to specific recipes, rituals, or people. Some were used to flavor sauces, others to treat colds, a few to ward off spirits, and one particularly bold recipe combined chilies with chocolate and flowers. For enemies or weddings, it's unclear. At the back of the spice house, two women are mixing a thick red sauce in a clay pot. One stirs, the other fans the fire. Neither speaks. The sauce bubbles with the soft menace of something that's seen centuries. Here's a spicy cultural tidbit: some warriors reportedly rubbed chili oil on their skin before battle, not for pain tolerance, but to ignite the blood. Historians disagree on whether this was literal or symbolic. Most agree it was great for laundry. You watch as a young apprentice sneezes dramatically from too much chili smoke. The elders don't laugh. They just hand him a woven cloth for his nose and keep stirring. Everyone learns the hard way. Use it near a basket of dried garlic bulbs and cocoa beans. The smell is oddly comforting. The spice house doesn't shout. It simmers. The day cools slightly. Shadows stretch a little longer across the floor. A breeze enters, tests the air, and decides to stay. And for a long moment, the city smells like warmth, and warning, and home. The spice house fades behind you as you follow a shaded path toward a quieter edge of Tenochtitlan. The buzz of kitchen work is gone now, replaced by the creak of wooden carts and the lapping hush of water along stone walls. You're by the canals again. Here, between lake and land, stand the China palms' floating gardens like woven rafts of soil, plants, and hope. From a distance, they look like green ribbons laid gently across the water. A small canoe bumps softly against the dock. A woman steps out, balancing a basket of greens and herbs on her head. Her arms are dusted with pollen and cornmeal, like chef's been seasoning the air itself. You walk the edge of the garden plots, where maize stalks rise like quiet sentinels. Beans spiral upward on their backs. Squash vines curl low, keeping to the shade. The three sisters, walking together in ancient rhythm. Historical rootwork China palms were a marvel of agricultural engineering. Raised beds built atop lake shallows, reinforced with woven reeds and mud. They produce enough food to feed hundreds of thousands. Some say more efficiently than modern farms. Others aren't sure how we'd measure that without offending the corn. A farmer passes you, nods once, then gently lifts a single ear of corn from a plant, whispers to it, and places it into his basket. You're not sure if that was ritual or habit, or both. Weird watery fact: certain China NPA plots were reserved for ceremonial crops, corn only used in offerings, chili only touched by cleansed hands. It was elitism. It was respect. A hierarchy of holiness rooted in soil. You sit on a stone by the canal. A heron watches you from across the water. It blinks once, then again, and resumes pretending it's a statue. The wind stirs the lily pads. A canoe glides past, filled with squash blossoms and red-stemmed greens. A boy hums a tune with no words. He doesn't need them. You close your eyes briefly and let the sun warm your face. The water laps softly. The crops sway. And the city, just beyond the trees, exhales, fed by hands, by steam, by song. You are full of it all, and yet still empty in the best way. Ready for the next taste. You rise from your seat by the canal and follow a narrow footpath, flanked by reeds and soft, spongy earth. The city is quieter here, not absent, just resting. This is the edge of the kitchens, the gardens, the rituals. It's where food turns back into soil. Ahead, you see a circular clearing ringed with stones, and shaded by large A-hue trees. In the center stands a small hearth, just a pit, really where embers still glow under a pile of pale ashes. This is the place where food was returned to the gods when offerings were complete. Not everything was eaten. Some dishes, meant only for spirits, were burned gently. Not to destroy, but to transform. To release flavor into the wind, sent into the sky. A woman with long gray braids stirs the ashes with a stick. She's humming. Not a tune. Just breath made musical by repetition. She sprinkles dried marigold petals into the fire pit. They crackle softly, like old parchment curling in warmth. Historical Ember Aztecs believe that the smoke from burnt food offerings carried their intentions and prayers upward, each flame a message, each scent a signature. This wasn't waste. It was communication. You kneel beside the circle. There's no ceremony now. No crowd. Just memory and warmth. Iklebo sits nearby with the last of a maize cake crumbled inside. It was once shaped like the sun. Now it's returning to ash. Weird culinary tidbits, some rituals involved scent trials, where offerings were judged by smell alone before being accepted. If a stew smelled too bitter or bland, it might be rejected not by people, but by the gods. To be fair, even the divine appreciates seasoning. The fire flickers once more. The smoke drifts upward in a thin silver ribbon. You follow it with your eyes until it vanishes into sky. A breeze rustles the trees, and the ash settles. The woman stops humming. She looks at you, smiles slightly, then returns to her quiet. You rise and walk slowly around the circle, tracing the stone boundary with your fingers. It's warm from sun and stories. The air smells like spice smoke and the fading sweetness of cooked squash. And in this stillness, you realize you're not outside the city. You're inside its heart. Afternoon is giving way to evening now. The light has gone soft, turning every surface golden, like it's been brushed with warm honey and left to rest. You follow the main road back toward the center of Tenochtitlan. The city is beginning to hum again, not with work, but with conversation. The kitchens are cooling. The hearths are dimming. Families gather outside their homes, sitting on low stools, eating slowly. Children play with maize husks, making dolls or tossing them like sacred beanbags. Laughter spills into the alleyways like steam from a resting pot. You pass a young couple sharing a bowl of bean stew, each dipping tortillas into the clay dish and exchanging glances that say more than the food ever could. Historical note for your evening: digest communal eating was an essential part of Aztec life. Food wasn't just sustenance. It was bond, it was gratitude, it was ritual made daily. Even simple meals were acts of connection. A group of elders sits in a circle nearby, grinding cocoa with slow, deliberate hands. The paste is thick, shiny, and rich with meaning. One of them lifts a spoonful and stirs it into water, adding a pinch of chili, a dash of honey. The drink foams, dark and fragrant. A girl passes you a small cup without speaking. You sip. It's bitter, warm, with a heat that grows slowly. The flavor lingers not just on your tongue, but in your chest. Curious cultural footnote: foamed cacao was often shared at important meetings, weddings, and peace gatherings. In some regions, it was even used as currency. The more foam, the more respect. And, one assumes, the more mustaches. You sit beneath a jacker in a tree. Its blossoms lilac against the evening sky. Petals fall softly around you, some landing in the last bowls of food, unnoticed, unbothered. The sounds of spoons scraping bowls. The rustle of cotton robes. A parrot murmuring sleepy gossip in a nearby window. You watch the sun slip below the rooftops. And though your hands are empty, you feel completely full. Because dinner has passed. But the warmth remains. Night descends like a blanket gently drawn across the city, slow, deliberate and familiar. Tenochtitlan doesn't sleep all at once. It exhales first. The smoke from hearths fades into the dark sky. Lamps flicker behind reed curtains. Somewhere far off, a flute begins to play, not loud, not perfect, but steady. You walk slowly now, your footsteps soft against worn basalt paths. You've returned to the outer kitchens, where earlier the fires blazed and voices chattered. Now, the embers glow quietly. Ashes settle like snow. A few cooks remain cleaning stones, stacking bowls, humming lullabies to no one in particular. A boy sweeps gently, pausing now and then to chase a wandering beetle with more curiosity than urgency. You sit beside a wall where dried corn still hangs in braided ropes, yellow, red, black. Each cup a bookmark in the story of a meal that was, or will be. Final fact for the evening is tech food preparation often ended with purification washing tools, thanking ingredients, and even offering a final bite to the earth. The end of cooking was not just cleanup. It was closure. An older cook kneels at a basin, rinsing her hands in rose-minus scented water. She murmurs a short prayer to the May spirit, gratitude for what was cooked, for what was shared, and for what remained. Even leftovers carry honor. Especially leftovers. A candle burns on a low altar nearby, surrounded by small offerings, a piece of squash cake, a folded tortilla, a single red petal. Not grand, just quiet. A final cultural whisper: some Aztec families left food out overnight, not for themselves, but for spirits, ancestors, or wandering gods who might need a taste of something remembered. A midnight tamale for a tired deity. A cup of cacao for the road. You lie back slowly, letting the ground support you. The sky is clear now, wide and soft and filled with stars arranged in patterns that no one quite agrees on but everyone feels. A breeze drifts over the stones. Not cold, not warm, just present. You close your eyes, not to end the journey, but to steepen it. Because here, in this city of petals and peppers, prayers and fire, every bite was a page, every scent a chapter. And you've read it all, one taste at a time. Let it all fall away now. The steps, the scents, the story's all still there. Yes, but softened now, like herbs hung to dry in the quiet corners of memory. The fire has dimmed. The cooks have gone. But the warmth remains resting in your breath, tucked between your thoughts. You walked through a city made of steam and stone, where even tortillas carried meaning on marigolds were folded into food like blessings. Now there's only stillness, and the occasional soft whisper of night animals returning to the streets, unbothered by history. Breathe slowly. Inhale the scent of roasted maize that lingers only in your imagination. Exhale the rhythm of the stone metates, ground smooth by hands older than time. Let your body grow heavier, like the clay pots, cooling under thatched roofs. Let your thoughts settle like spices in water, slowly sinking until all that's left is clarity. The city sleeps. So do its gods, its gardens, its quiet kitchens. You've followed its pulse from dawn until dark, and now your own heart beats slower, tuned to that ancient rhythm. There is no need to understand it all. The prayers folded into tamales, the stories painted on petals, the music humming in Chilean chocolate. Some truths are meant to be tasted, not solved. So, rest. Let the stars keep watch over your dreams. Let the steam of memory rise gently above your breath. Let the wind carry the last scent of sweetened maize across your skin. You are still. You are food. And you are home.